Hey everyone, RogueGold here. Welcome back to The Division 2, and today I wanted to share with you all some pretty inspiring news that I learned recently. The Division 2 is getting some backup. You know, in the recent weeks we've talked a lot about the development realities behind the game at the moment, and what they've been for the past 2 years since content resumed for the game. With the rebuilt development team, the reduced resources that Ubisoft has allocated the Division 2 compared to years past for the franchise, and especially this was all compounded and driven home when we learned of the cancellation of the Division Heartland. The studio behind that game, Red Storm, which had been with the Division for nearly a decade at that point, didn't get put back on the Division 2 once Heartland was no more. Instead, they were reassigned to Rainbow Six Siege and X Defiant. And while I can't fix that blow, I'm certainly still bummed by that. There was a small win that came out of the Heartland cancellation, like I said, one that I just learned of earlier this week, so I wanted to share that news with all of you and get your guys' thoughts on it. Let's dive right in. Okay, so this all focuses around the development team and resources behind the Division 2. For some quick context, ever since the major restructuring and rebuilding of the development team for this game, which happened during the 15-month content drought between Season 4 and Season 9 of the game, there were some big shifts in how the Division IP had been handled up until that point. Massive Entertainment in Sweden was and still continues to be the leaders of this franchise. It's their baby, they created and developed it since day one, but as they are a studio owned by Ubisoft, Ubi's development strategy has always been cross-studio collaboration for all of their franchises. They have dozens of studios worldwide with thousands upon thousands of employees, so what they'll do is partner different studios and teams within them up on different projects. For instance, during the Division 2's main development, Massive had hundreds of support developers from many different studios worldwide like UB Reflections, Annecy, the aforementioned Red Storm. What happened after Season 4, however, was that the Division 2's team within Massive itself was all but gone. Save for 6 or so core leadership figures left, the rest had been moved to either Avatar or Star Wars, the two of the projects in development at the studio, and this meant that if they wanted to make more content, they needed a new team. And this is when Ubisoft Bucharest came into the picture. They were brought on board, trained in the Snowdrop engine, and got to work. And so, since Season 9, Massive still leads the project and gives out the creative and narrative directives, but the bulk of the actual development work done on the game comes from the team at Ubisoft Bucharest. That was the new dynamic in place. Later on, we learned that they were also getting some additional support sometimes from a team at Ubisoft Shanghai. For instance, they were the ones who developed and shipped the Paradise Lost incursion that we received during Year 5, but they almost seem to be more like a contract position rather than a permanent installation for the team, if that makes sense. Skip ahead to now, however, and it looks like there may now be a third permanent fixture for the Division 2 team, one that came directly from the cancellation of the Division Heartland, which, like I said, makes that hurt no less, but at least it appears that something beneficial came from it for us fans, right? So, just to clarify, I don't have an exact time frame for when this shakeup that we're about to go over occurred. It's likely been in place for a little while now, but without there being any official announcement of this, it's hard to track this stuff all down sometimes, but that's why y'all have got me, right? So, who we're talking about is Ubisoft Red Links, and to better articulate and show what's going on here, let's jump over to the handy internet real quick and I'll explain. Alright, so a few different things to take a look at, but firstly was this article posted on Red Storm's website back on, as you can see, June 27th of 2023. This was right around when the closed beta for the game was spinning up. They were starting to put out some more information about it online, and this article specifically went into detail about the different development teams, as it says, get to know the teams behind Tom Clancy's The Division Heartland. Obviously, Red Storm was the lead on the project, but as I was saying, with many of Ubisoft's titles across their company, they use the support studios that they'll give into the main studio to help out. And in this case, Ubisoft Red Link seemed to be the biggest contributor on the Division Heartland. So it says it went into closed beta, and then they're giving some little excerpts and quotes from different people. So Tony, who is the director of product development at Red Storm itself, talked there, but then it skips down here. You have Anastasia, who it says senior associate producer from collaborating studio Ubisoft Red Links. Then of course you have Keith Evans, who is also from Red Storm. You have a few other ones down here, talks about the other studios that were involved in the collaboration, but Red Links, you know, from all intents and purposes that I saw, was the main collaborating studio on the Division Heartland. And I remember at the time I went over to their website because I was not familiar with them, and they, you know, very much explained that on their website. There was all these things about how they're working on Heartland. That's like one of their big focuses. Well, that's now shifted, and from what I can tell, that team is now working on the Division 2. If we scroll down here a little bit, they detail everything that's going on at their studio. They have this mobile game, I guess, that came out, but then it says, we're working with the team developing Ubisoft Scalar, which is a big new tech thing that I talked about a few years ago. I kind of want to do a new video on it in relation to the Division 3, but anyway, they're working on that. They have a team working on the Snowdrop engine, which is, of course, the in-house engine developed at Massive that was made for The Division. And then it says right here, in addition, we are collaborating on Tom Clancy's The Division 2 and also supporting Massive Entertainment in developing Star Wars Outlaws. So it's kind of funny because overall, it seems like they're just a huge, massive support studio right now because Snowdrop is Massive's engine, Outlaws is their new premium title about to release, and of course Tom Clancy's The Division 2 is the live title that they got working on. But there you have it. And again, when I checked this last year, it would have said right here that they're working on Tom Clancy's The Division Heartland. They had a whole different slate of what their projects were, but Tom Clancy's The Division 2 is now in the fold. And just for some further final confirmation here, if you go over to their games page and you scroll down a little bit, again, it shows all these things that they were just talking about, but then you get to Tom Clancy's The Division 2. It's an open world action shooter RPG experience set in Washington, D.C. We are collaborating on the live game with Ubisoft Romania, which also means Ubisoft Bucharest, same thing, and Massive Entertainment. And so, there you go. Like I said, from everything that we've seen here, everything that we know, the team that was working on The Division Heartland, once that project was no longer a thing, they got moved over to now work on The Division 2. And so, there you have it. By all accounts, in the recent months here, The Division 2 has been provided with some fresh reinforcements behind the scenes. And so, like I said, I find this to be encouraging. We all want Ubisoft to give Massive and the teams the resources they need to properly sustain a game like this, especially one that's of this age that's running into so many technical hurdles. And so to at least get a sliver of a silver lining from the Heartland cancellation by seeing Red Links getting added to the Division 2's development lineup, it feels like a bit of a sunbreak through the clouds, you know? Maybe that's a bit too cheesy, but I'm hopeful that this leads to more consistent and polished content. That's all we can hope for, right? And so, just to put some final clarity on it, here is the current Division 2 development roster, courtesy of Palle Hofstein, who I know many of you are familiar with. He's one of the leads on the game over at Massive. In response to someone asking how big the game's dev team is, he said, "I can't give the number, but the team size is admittedly lean for a game of this complexity. The team is spread across Bucharest, Malmo, and Helsinki, with some folks from Shanghai joining from time to time." And that's one important thing to remember. While this Red Links news is awesome, it's not going to radically transform the team's output or ability overnight. They're still working with a behemoth of game and task for their size, but we know they're trying their best. And as he says, we've of course now got Massive leading in Malmo, the established team at Bucharest providing the bulk of the resources, the newly added team from Red Links in Helsinki, and then he mentions that Shanghai comes on from time to time. As I mentioned, they did the Paradise Lost incursion. I haven't heard what, if anything, they're working on for the game since then. It wouldn't shock me if they're helping to do some work for the Brooklyn DLC, but I hope they continue to be involved. I, for one, think they knocked it out of the park with Paradise Lost. Anyway, folks, that is about everything there is to go over. The Division 2's got some backup, and I hope that that means nothing but good things for us moving forward. That's everything I've got for this one today, folks. I very much hope you enjoyed watching. I would be super curious to get your guys' thoughts and reactions to everything that we went over in this video. What do you think about the fact that not only Ubisoft has given the Division 2 some support with this team at Red Links, but also the fact that this same team came directly from Heartland? We didn't lose the entirety of the resources from that cancellation. I think it's a small silver lining. Again, I'd love if we had Red Storm back on the Division 2. I'd love it even more if we had actually gotten Heartland in our hands, but I'll certainly take this over nothing at all. So let's hope that it means that it makes the game better for it. If y'all did enjoy the video or you learned something, and you want to stay in the loop with the latest on the Division 2 and the franchise at large, then I would very much appreciate you clicking that subscribe button if you haven't already. But yeah, that's everything I've got, folks. Thank you all so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one. RogueGold. Out.